So, hello everyone again. Thank you for your patience. We were expecting some other participants. Now they're there. So, welcome to this webinar. I thank you for your interest and your time in taking part in this webinar about ethnography, which I hope you will enjoy. Let me just shortly introduce to you my colleague. This is Isabel. She will be supporting the webinar on the technology, let's say. Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Nayeli, and I have been working for HYVE for almost 10 years now. Netnography has been one of my major strengths and passions during this time, but my relationship with ethnography started already as a student at university. I have conducted around 30 ethnography projects in the last years, and the topics I have treated in the past with ethnography include yogurt, soups, bubblegum, oral care, cheese, coffee, deodorants, hairstyling, pet food, e-mobility, energy, smart home, a lot of different topics. Well, that's our agenda for today. First, I'm going to give you a short introduction about HYVE, so I can then talk about social media research times, and then define what ethnography is all about. I'm going to show you 3 best practice examples, and then I'm going to introduce you on how we implement an ethnographic research. I'm going to include giving you some learnings, a summary, and an outlook. Now, let me start introducing just briefly what HYVE, our company, is all about, so I can position and explain ethnography to you in the proper context. We were founded in the year 2000, and today we're more than 85 employees. We have conducted more than 3,000 innovation projects. But the question is, what do we exactly do at HYVE? Well, we help our clients create successful innovations from start to finish. And what you see here is just a selection of products we were able to create from the very start to finish with our clients and their customers. Now, how do we do this? We do this by relying on the 4 most human-centered design practices, which you're probably familiar with. It's design thinking, service design, co-creation, etc. All of these disciplines and practices follow more or less the same process to A, remain human-centered, and B, reduce the risk of failure for the company. Regardless of the type of innovation we're seeking in a project, being product, service, physical, digital innovation, maybe a mix, we design innovations with our clients iteratively following a 5-step process. In the first step, we focus on exploring customer needs and innovation opportunities to then create and select ideas, concepts, or business plans. Then we design and build prototypes based on these ideas. We then test, refine it, and redesign these prototypes iteratively to finally implement the innovation, deliver it, and hopefully scale the business. For each phase of the innovation process, there are a number of different tools serving different purposes. These tools focus on insights in the first phase, ideation in the second, then elaborated concepts, prototyping, then testing, and finally bringing it to the market. Naturally, we provide the best combination of methods for each project. The focus of today lies in the exploration of consumer needs and new opportunities. Within this exploratory phase, the method I'm introducing today is netnography. Let me talk a bit about this exploratory phase, seeking to find out about consumer needs and preferences, discovering what they do, what they say, think, or feel regarding specific products, services, or situations. This is the key goal in the first phase of all innovation processes, regardless of which human-centered approach we're talking about, be it design thinking, service design, UX design, you name it. In fact, finding out what consumers do, say, think, or feel is what traditional market research is all about. However, this was traditionally done by means of asking consumers, for example, in interviews, focus groups, or via quantitative surveys. However, we all know that these methods are outdated, prone to several biases, and consumers are not always able to express their needs and preferences in this way. In addition, all of these approaches are rather active in nature. The researcher actively interacts with the consumer to find out about his or her needs. We at HYVE strongly believe that there is a better way to find out what consumers really want, so we adopt a different approach. But in order to understand our approach, one needs to take a step back and look at the time we're living now in. This image by artist Eric Fisher represents geotags from Twitter and Flickr mapped into a New York City map. In illustrations of social media usage, this brilliant guy bridges art and analysis, aiming to show us the sheer amount of technology being used, but also of digital content being created. When Eric Fisher started doing these mapping techniques 3.5 years ago, there were about 10 million public geotag tweets every day, which is about 120%. The media usage in an internet minute last year looked more or less like this. Almost 4.5 million videos are watched in a minute. Almost 4 million Google searches taking place in a minute. Almost 500,000 tweets sent, and almost 2,000 new posts in Reddit per minute. We have now more data in our hands than ever before. We can definitely say we're experiencing great times for social media research. In fact, we all talk about the era of social media, an era where everyone is talking about big data, machine learning algorithms, artificial intelligence. These are the hot topics not to be missed. And in the face of this, today, I want to talk to you about netnography, a child born of ethnography which favors quality over quantity, making it the known mainstream method to identify deep customer insights and avoid getting lost in digital quantitative numerical opportunism. So let's get ready and let's dive deep into online communities and discover user worlds, which is what ethnography is all about. Now, where comes ethnography from? The origins of ethnography start with Professor Robert Kozinets, who is hopefully listening to us as well. He's considered the inventor of ethnography. It's in 1995, during his dissertation work on media fan communities, specifically the Star Trek community, that he invents the method of ethnography. Then, meaning since 2 decades, netnography has been adopted by a variety of researchers from computer science, psychology, marketing, consumer research, you name it. And it has established itself as an important research technique and forward-thinking agencies and companies, to a great extent due to his exceptional work. Professor Robert Kozinets wrote 7 out of the top 10 most cited articles concerning ethnography. Yes, we're good friends with him, and I was seeking to exchange intellectual thoughts with him. But what is netnography? Today, I would like to introduce you to an adapted definition of netnography for practical reasons, which I will explain later to you. The word netnography is the blend of 2 words, internet and ethnography. And the definition reads as follows. Netnography is a qualitative research method to analyze the consumer dialogue and user-generated content in social media in order to gain valuable consumer insights. The immersive and empathic online observation allows for the qualitative assessment of explicitly verbalized and implicitly existing needs, wishes, experiences, motivations, attitudes, and perceptions of consumers, users towards products, services, situations, and brands. In this definition, I'm talking about social media, including the typical platforms most of you probably know, which include Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, Amazon, Facebook, etc. However, the term social media includes online communities or forums. You probably remember the good old bulletin boards, which are less popular, much smaller, but incredibly valuable pools of information, inspiration, expertise, and passion. Yes, passion. Passion is the right wording for this Harley-Davidson fan community. This is probably not the sexiest community you've ever seen, but the fan dialogue, which you will find here, believe me, is more than sexy. Making a screenshot on a random time of the day, you will find almost 3,000 active users. Moreover, the forum statistic revealed 8.5 million Harley-Davidson related posts and 1.2 million different discussions. Four 400,000 aquarium experts and almost 20 million posts. No, this is not Facebook, nor Twitter. This is a pool of aquarium-related thought leaders. And these are just some examples. There is always a community for any possible topic you can imagine. Now, there are two approaches to conduct ethnographic research. On the one side, we have the original approach by Professor Kosinets, which is active or rather interactive, meaning participatory. That is, you enter the community and establish a dialogue with the community members. On the other side, we have the passive, pure observational approach, where we don't talk to community members, we just passively observe. And this is the project, the approach we have been running for 16 years now at HYVE. The question is why? And there are different reasons. One reason is to avoid an artificial research setting. We want to analyze the consumer as he would normally talk. Well, in this case, right. We want his most sincere thoughts and feelings. And if that includes getting too emotional and using some improper words, that is okay for us. We don't want him or her to show us how educated and well-behaved he can be or she can be. This is what we call social desirability. No, thank you. We need the authenticity of the consumer in order to represent him properly, in order to get his point and his feelings just as they are. This can be achieved by conducting the research in his or her natural environment, the community in this case, and listening to the free-flowing conversations taking place. The second reason is to avoid obtrusiveness. Online communities are spaces where consumers frequently gather online and communicate their shared enthusiasm, knowledge, or concerns about certain topics. It's their space. It's a virtual building they have constructed with a lot of effort. Sometimes for them, it's something like their second home, their escape from reality. A lot of times, these communities have developed their very own language. They have invented words. They have their own abbreviations and acronyms. They have their own behavior rules and rituals. This is what they call the community netiquette. And now, you researcher, you intruder, just enter our space and start making questions? No way. Of course, a professional ethical researcher adopting a participatory approach would never ever behave like this. In fact, in regards to the participatory approach, Professor Robert Kosinets puts a lot of emphasis on asking the community for permission, on introducing yourself honestly, introducing the scope of your investigation to always obtain written informed consent. I do believe that this participatory approach is perfect for certain topics, like understanding a very specific culture, for example, the Star Trek community or the Harley-Davidson tribes, or projects where you only need one single community. However, for more daily business topics, where we usually include different communities and social media, the non-participatory approach has delivered very good results and proved itself. The third reason, last but not least, for a participatory approach, you always need permission. What if the community says, no, you don't have the permission? In the academic world, maybe you have a plan B. In the business world, there is no plan B. You have a contract where you are quoted with the client to conduct netnographic research. For these and other reasons, we rely on a passive approach and on communities that are public, open to anyone, where I don't need to log in to have access to the discussions. That implies that the data collected originates, manifests, and is shared freely on the internet. Those observed expect to be observed. Avoiding A and B is what leads to less biased, very authentic, fresh, grounded insights. So for these reasons, HYVE has adopted a passive approach, and we have been doing this for more than 16 years now, very successfully. Now, there is one key aspect that needs special attention. Adopting the passive approach, that means pure observational, does not imply you won't immerse yourself in the online communities and in the consumer dialogue. In fact, there is no netnography without immersion. Call it different then, because netnography is a child born from netnography, and that implies immersion no matter what. And that means reading, 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 reading until you feel part of the community, part of the tribe and their rituals and habits. And if you haven't talked, even if you haven't talked to them, it involves going deep into netizens' lives, thus interaction of the customer in an empathetic manner so that you really get physically and emotionally your customer's lives and their point of view. Now, this is part of the theory. Let me just show me some examples so you can really get a better idea of how netnography looks like. Um, of course, I can show you all in detail for time purposes, but my goal today is to make you familiar with the kind of outcomes you can expect from ethnographic research. So, yeah, let me begin with this one very interesting example, which is a technology B2C example. It's about vacuum cleaning robots, which look more or less like this. We have conducted ethnographic research for 2 different companies of such cleaning robots. With both companies had noticed that the online dialogue on these devices is vast and rich. But where does this vast and rich online dialogue come from? This community cloud shows you a selection of online communities where users discuss vacuum cleaning robots. You see different community categories like home and gardening. You see parenting communities, pet communities, women forums, but you also see a very small cluster, a very small robot and IT cluster where you can find exceptionally good robot reviews and high-tech discussions. Analyzing these robot communities revealed that most of their members were male, that in comparison to other classic cleaning household appliances, men had the leading role in the purchase decision, which was already a very interesting finding. Now, let me show you an example of an insight. This visualization is how we decided to present one of our insights for the project. We call the story, My Baby is a Robot. You see the photograph of a family, and the central picture of the family not only includes their little son, Paul, but also Robbie, the cleaning robot. Yes, Robbie has become a part of the family, and yes, he has a name. The online dialogue reveals that cleaning robots are being humanized by their owners to a strong degree. Community members reveal that they give the robot names. And here you see some examples. Robert, Horst, Frida, Herbie, Giggles, and Rosie. Most users in America call the robot Rosie, like the humanoid cleaning robot from the cartoon The Jetsons, revealing again the tendency of humanizing robots again. Netizens reveal that robots become part of the family, just as in the Jetsons, and state that robots are definitely like our new roomie, another family member or a nice maid. They even make use of phrases like when he moved in instead of when we bought him. This owners talk or write about their robots in a very human fashion. Let me show you some original user statement. I turned him around, and after emptying his dustbin, I let him sleep, instead of saying I shut him down. Even more interesting is the fact that apparently a number of users enjoy talking to their robots, even if the robot isn't able to respond. For example, if the robot gets stuck and makes a noise to let his owner know, the owner may ask with a mother's voice, "What is wrong with my little one?" Here's one example. I don't have one, but my mom does, and she does treat it like it's a puppy or something, but I don't think she has officially named it. She will call me on the phone and tell me that, oops, he's bumped his little nose into the wall, or whatever. So she does consider it a boy. I'm sure she will eventually name it. She's just fascinated watching it. Such funny but very relevant behaviors are the reasons why today you can give your vacuum robot a name on the robot app. In this case, the Nito app, for example. This is also the reason why robots get a face and dresses. So, analyzing this interaction between vacuum cleaning robots and the users, don't be surprised if in the near future you can talk to a vacuum robot just as you do with Alexa or with Siri, for example. Now, building such a relationship and a dialogue with your robot, with your dear Rosie, has tremendous consequences for the future. It's very easy to just put your classic vacuum cleaner in the cellar, in the attic, or into the garage once you buy a new one, or once its performance starts declining. In fact, most users can't wait to get rid of their vacuum cleaner. They buy the robot with the hope to get rid of their bulky vacuum cleaners. But the question is, are you really willing to do the same with this robotic body who cleans up the house for you while you relax or do other things? This body who welcomes you with a perfectly clean home after work? This body you gave a name and pampered like a baby? This body who you talk to politely and he replies to you? Probably not. And this has tremendous implications for the business of all vacuum cleaning robots, which I will leave to your interpretation. Now, just as babies grow and start communicating, doing tantrums, I want this, I want that, I don't like this, I want that, so do robots. These guys on the visual are in a furniture shop and can't wait to buy a new carpet. And why not? Maybe a standing lamp, some new chairs. But the lovely robot says, no, I want to go to the next hallway. I don't like the furniture in this aisle. The guy is just like, okay, never mind. The question is, who is the boss? You, the parent, or the baby? Well, in a number of homes, it's the robot who takes the roles. So the online dialogue reveals that users are forced to tidy up rooms to avoid the robot to get stuck and enable its autonomy. This of course costs time and is not comforting. Tidying up means removing cables from the floor or any smaller pieces like Legos, toys, socks, branches, you name it. Let me show you some exemplary posts. I couldn't leave while it was going because my Roomba required a great deal of babysitting. It kept getting stuck. And again, this post highlights the humanization of the robot by the owner. It's about babysitting. With the ultimate goal of improving the performance of their device and let him work home alone without getting stuck, users will try to make their homes more robot-friendly. They will neatify, Roombaify the rooms. And this is real consumer language, ladies and gentlemen. I did not invent these wordings. It was the community. Neatifying or Roombaifying goes from the already mentioned tidying up, such as removing cables, small pieces, etc., but also removing robot unfriendly carpets or replacing the carpet for a more robot-friendly one. Neatifying is also about putting the chairs up just the way we did when we were at school. So Rosie doesn't have difficulties to pass through. Neatifying implies modifying the height of her furniture with razors so Rosie can pass underneath, or replacing the furniture to more robot-friendly pieces. Besides helping the robot increase its performance, that is, help him clean better and avoid getting stuck, users also Roombaify to avoid scratches or add furniture pieces, which used to happen often enough. Most users used to accept it just the way it is. Like, well, Roombaifying is part of the experience of owning a Roomba, right? Take it or leave it. But a smaller number of users refused to accept this, and their voice was fundamental for change. Their message was very clear for robot companies. Rosie, in my place, I am the boss. And here's one post. I'm willing to give him 1 star just because I don't want to make him worse than he is. Honestly, I'm the boss in my house And I, and only me, decide the conditions I want to live in, putting up carpets, hiding cables, locking up the children, putting things away, and not the robot. Today, most vacuum robots have amazing object detection, cable disentanglement, and carpet climbing mechanisms, exactly for such insights. Now, let me show you another example. Babies can be so sweet and lovely, but changing the diapers is not always the highlight, especially if you have to do that several times a day. Exactly the same happens with the vacuum robots. Maybe cleaning and emptying the robot only takes 5 minutes, but the total is greater than the sum of the parts. It's the frequent dirty emptying of the robot that annoys users. Especially long hairs were a nightmare for conventional brushes. To prevent frequent emptying, users hoped for bigger bins, or even better, they wished robots could clean or empty themselves, like going to the bathroom, potty training. In fact, some users had even designed their own self-emptying dustbins, which was very inspiring. Ideally, all pieces of the robot should be easy cleanable, but that is often not the case. And as a consequence, users rely on other machines to clean their robots. And ironically, it involves a classic vacuum cleaner. In addition, despite the inclusion of so-called HEPA filters, emptying the robot is often an issue for allergic users. This is the reason why today a number of vacuum robots empty on their own. Now, let me come to a second example, which is about soups. We're talking about here about a B2B food example. And this is B2B because Simrise, our client, does not produce soups, but the flavors, aromas, and emulsifiers for soup producers. Now, the point of departure was the following. The revenue of companies selling soups had been decreasing in the last few years dramatically, and Simras wanted to learn more about the consumers and their habits regarding soup consumption in order to come up with solutions for their clients. We focus on consumer habits and emotions concerning soups, their attitude towards different types of soups, the perception of soup characteristics, and unfulfilled wishes. Our social media research revealed one crucial answer why things were going really bad for instant soups, which is, I guess, this image explains perfectly. This image reflects the image consumers have of instant soup producers like Knorr, Campbells, Heinz, Maggi. In this visual, we took Knorr and Maggi as examples, but the perception was the same for all other companies. Witches preparing potion soup with MSG, yeast extracts, numbers, and other chemical stuff. You bad boys. For the case one is in need of using commercially made soups, often consumers will rely on pimping up their commercially made soup with fresh vegetables represented by this woman. This strategy helps consumers satisfy their own conscience by compensating the lack of healthy nutrients, but also to compensate the laziness and put some creativity and at least some effort. Here you see some typical wordings for instant soups, which include BPA. Many cans have high levels of sodium and some contain monosodium glutamate. They're full of crap, numbers, artificial rubbish, 95% salt. Instant soup is full of crap. For the sake of others around you, I would stop eating it. It's very frightening. Hydrogenated oils, if not more horrifying than MSG. This is exactly the image. However, there were also good news for the soups. One of the major goals of the project was to identify opportunities to revive or change the aspect or image of soups. Do you know the TV show Extreme Makeover? Well, here, originally less attractive women were transformed to astonishing beauty queens through rigid diets, sports programs, and radical surgeries. In fact, there was also the home edition of Extreme Makeover. And today, I would like to talk to you about the Extreme Makeover Soup Edition. because we notice that the soup has a tremendous capacity to change the mental and physical state of consumers. It can be a flu, it can be a cold, you're experiencing homesickness, you're feeling blue, or heavily stressed. Soup can do miracles. This is what the online dialogue revealed. And let me show you one concrete example where soup is miraculous. What you see here is a student who had an amazing party yesterday, dancing, singing, and yes, lots of cocktails. What a tremendous hangover the next day. He goes to the bathroom, opens the medicine box, and no, he doesn't grab the aspirin. No, not the Tylenol. It's the soup. Nothing beats a soup after a good party, is what we learned from analyzing student forums. Young adolescents rely on heavy, spicy soups to cure their hangover. Interestingly, a lot of Mexican recipes played an important role for American young adolescents. Here you see Mexican menudo, a spicy soup for that much needed morning after. It's a miracle cure from hangovers. Or albondiga soup, works like a charm, but kind of gets you in the mood for tequila again. Interestingly, we noticed that there were soups from all over the world curing bad hangovers in the younger generations, from India with razan, from Spain with sopa de ajo. It's a good miso soup in Japan and a good salty noodle soup from China. We had identified one of many relevant moments where soup is consumed with pleasure and with a function by a new young target group. We came up with first product ideas just to make our stories and insights more tangible and have a more solid basis for further discussion. Let me introduce you to one product that we had presented, which looks like this. These soups represent a fresher, younger image for soups. Instead of the classical can, it focuses on the moment and less on the flavor. It focuses on the typical language of younger generations and less on the convenient aspect or taste, as I said. Examples are, I should not have drunk so much. Your grandmother's penicillin. It's damn cold outside. This is the idea of this concept. Interestingly, although we didn't do this in ethnography for Campbells, these new soups entered the market at the same time. We were very surprised to that time, but also happy to see our insights taking life. We knew Campbells had identified similar insights. Today, soups have had a renaissance. Maybe not a dramatic one in food companies or in the can, but in the fast food domain of restaurants and the like. This is only one example we have here in Munich, just around the corner from our office. It's called Urban Soup. The place has always full house. All soups are made from high quality regional products and organic where possible. As they said, as they had this takeaway idea, they developed a certain viscosity that makes the soups perfect for sipping it from the yard. What you see here is that the owners are not grandmas. These are sporty, dynamic guys who just love soup and recognize its huge potential and benefits. And they say it here. We have always loved soup. What we did is take the old-fashioned briny part of it and put some real good ingredients to it. And now let me come to our last example, which is probably the most successfully story in the fast-moving consumer goods domain together with our client Biostop. I will explain this case very briefly because you can find a lot of information and articles in the web. So how did the story begin? This was the status quo some years ago. All deodorants in the shelves were quite similar, centered around one theme. The theme was efficacy. Some of you might remember this commercial with tennis player Steffi Graf showing the efficacy of our Rexona deodorant. Innovation was more or less standing still, with this being the key innovation, increasing deodorant duration of up to 96 hours. However, at this point, it did not really offer any additional benefit to consumers, except if you only shower every 4 days. However, this is the type of insights we would have uncovered with a traditional research method. Duration again. If you ask people if they would like to have a longer duration, they will of course say yes, because it is better than before, but you're not uncovering hidden needs. Such answers would have not been enough to create the next innovation that would disrupt the product category. And that was the goal. And so we started with an ethnography. We encountered fantastic communities, like the Beauty Junkies community, where 35,000 community members discuss every possible aspect of a deodorant in a depth never seen before. By immersing ourselves into the online dialogue worldwide, we were able to uncover one major pain point that consumers frequently complain about. It's deodorant and sweat stain on t-shirts. We noticed there was a variety of stains. As a result, we created a stain manual explaining the different origins according to consumers and how they remove and avoid them. Removal ingredients include citric acid, oil, aspirin, bleach, vodka, baking powder. Avoiding strategies include using a blow dryer to make the deodorant dry faster. But as a leading skincare company, the last thing you want is that your customer gets burned because your product stains from these residues. There was just so much reason to believe here. During the ethnography, we encountered Tuck, the Undershirt guy, a blogger writing reviews and giving advice on t-shirts and how to keep them white. He's a lead user for this particular challenge, and we invited him and other lead users to take part in creative sessions with our clients and create ideas. More than 400 ideas emerged, which were then challenged by a large pool of commitment consumers. The result of a long and intense co-creation process with consumers, lead users, and other stakeholders was the Invisible for Black and White, the most successful product launch in 130 years history of media. And it all started with an ethnography, ladies and gentlemen. With the launch of the project, a new deodorant category was born. And soon the rest of the companies came. We were really proud to be copied. Now, I've shown you more or less in practice how the netnography looks like and what kind of results you can expect. Now the question is, how did we do this? How is netnographic research implemented? Well, in this case, I want to refer, let's say, to the process, to the more operational steps of a non-participatory, thus a passive netnography. The netnographic process I'm showing to you is comparable as a comparable process to Professor Cousinet's original approach, with small adjustments for practical use in the business and market research context. For these 5 steps, very important, I will take for granted that you will provide confidentiality and anonymity in your report, preserve the rights for privacy and property, and rely exclusively on online communities where you can access the data without needing to log in, so you don't need informed consent. The 5 phases read as follows: research definition, community selection, qualitative data analysis, insight generation, consumer insights, and products and services. Imagine let's start with the research definition. For this, imagine we're running an ethnography on, let's say, shampoos. Are we talking about shampoos in general, or dandruff shampoos for curly hair, for straight hair, for men, for women, both? Probably it makes sense to have a closer look on hair washing routines. So in this very first step, we try to define the different aspects and topics, keywords that could play an important role for the sake of our ethnography. This first brainstorm picture of the world of shampoos will help you search for the right online communities or social media and search for the relevant discussions. In the next step, Specific research, the specific search strategies are applied in order to identify online communities and social media where consumers discuss a topic of interest. A pool of communities is then chosen for the further data analysis based on the following criteria: size, quality, search results, and activity. What does this mean? Chances are high that you include much smaller communities than Facebook for certain topics. I'm talking about a community where a smaller number of consumers, let's say 20,000, discuss a given topic with passion and dedication, rather than tweets of millions of people sharing a like or a thumbs up. You may also encounter huge and popular communities where interaction between the community members is rather low. In that case, you'll probably go for a smaller but much active both community. The selection of the right communities is a crucial step because it will determine how clean, solid, and reliable your insights are. Now, why do we make a selection? Why not crawling all the internet, all social media out there? Well, the answer is simple. We do ethnography the original way, and that is the human way. A human researcher can't analyze the thousands of communities and millions of posts by himself. This is something a crawler can, but at the very expensive cost of other things, which I will explain later. So the right selection of communities, the right mix, is a crucial step. This process can be software aided, why not? But at the end, the decision is very human-based. A machine, a crawler, can tell you where he found the most discussions concerning the topic, but it won't tell you reliably how the quality of the posts and discussions are, the spirit of the personality of the community, and the type of personas discussed in there. So this is a very human-based strategy. Now, let's move to the next step, the qualitative data analysis. The qualitative data analysis is again a very human-based step. We search for relevant discussions and posts that could give answer to our research questions explicitly or implicitly. We read and read and read and incorporate this relevant posts into a pool for further detailed analysis. At the end, more or less 400 to 700 high quality posts per country is what we read. But as I said, we read much more in order to come to this selection of posts. And this is exactly how we immerse ourselves in the online dialogue, by reading and reading and reading. After so much reading, believe me, you've peeled part of the community. You know the language, you know their leaders, you know their routines, their habits. So at the end, true, we don't have the thousands of millions of posts, no. But that is exactly the ethnography's strong point. It has always been about quality before quantity. Professor Robert Kozinets would refer in this case to deep data. The idea behind deep data is based on the premise that a small number of information-rich data, when leveraged properly, can yield greater business value at lower cost than vast volumes of data. And that is exactly what ethnography does. True, ethnography is not the quickest of methods. No, not at all. It's not push button, but it's one of the most important and flexible methods to gain deep consumer understanding. I'm talking about identifying insights. And this is how I will move to the next step. Identifying insights. You can also call it insight generation because you don't identify an insight by mere observation. No, you have to construct it. Again, this is a very human-based job. It's a lot about interpreting, comparing, connecting, challenging. So several brainstorming sessions and self-reflections take place in this step to finally arrive to an impactful consumer insight. But one moment, what is actually a consumer insight? Let me introduce you to a definition we at HYVE are fully aligned with. I'm talking about the definition offered by Professor Muhammad Shani. A consumer insight is a fresh understanding, but not obvious, about consumer beliefs, values, habits, motives, emotions, and needs that can be translated into competitive advantage. It involves going deep into customer lives in an empathetic manner so that you really get physically and emotionally your customer's lives and her point of view. As such, customer insight involves qualitative exploratory research. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what ethnography is all about. A consumer insight never comes from quantitative research, so don't look at it from your service. Qualitative research and quantitative research need to go hand in hand for true customer understanding. Qualitative research generates insights while quantitative research validates insights. You need both research traditions and in the right sequence. Yet, one of the primary ways companies interact with social media is through dashboards, social media monitoring dashboards. And this is exactly the difference between ethnography and social media monitoring or social media content analysis. It's about the difference between art and photography, or between having an eye or a lens, as Cosinets and other colleagues mentioned in a recent paper. In ethnography, our narratives are powerful stories about the true things in life. And this is something that the programmers and data scientists creating this software struggle to recognize and to understand. Most social monitoring platforms work with dictionary type systems that assign a particular value to a particular word. Even when they're driven by machine learning algorithms, their output are bar and pie charts or sentiment-based barometers with red, yellow, light colors. Of course, not to forget the word clouds in every single dashboard, a classic output. However, language is highly contextual. The best machine learning algorithm in the world still find it very difficult to interpret a story, a very basic story. Yet, a lot of companies still trust machines to analyze narratives by chopping the narratives into pieces and then sorting the pieces. Stories treated in this way are inevitably filtered. And you know what? What is filtered out? Yeah, that's what makes us humans. It's ironies, it's the tragedies, it's the hopes, the passions of the community. They all become mere lexical collection, and it's like having a consonant without a vocal at the end. Another limitation with social media monitoring dashboards are the incorporating images into the analysis, or let's say not the image, but the interconnection of an image and its meaning. We know that a lot, or 80% of all internet traffic is visual. It's videos, it's images, it's symbols. Understanding this is a key netnographic job. Similarly, have you ever seen a social scientist and programmer test and live what he extracts and codes with his crawler or artificial intelligence machine? This is me. This is me testing and experiencing what I read. This is a fundamental job of ethnographers, and it's part of the immersion. So, having said all of this, let me move to the last step. The fifth step, which consists in assembling the consumer insight, its narrative. This is a lot about storytelling, about visualizing the story behind the insight, about demonstrating magnitude, relevance, credibility, and actionability. At HYVE, being an innovation enabler, we very often go through a sixth step, which is translating our consumer insights into initial products or service ideas, making insights much more tangible, like you saw in the example of the suits. Now, let me come to an end and summarize what we discussed. Netnography is a great approach to get answers without making questions, and also for getting answers to questions we did not even thought of. Netnography delivers powerful insights around need gaps, pains and gains, customer journeys, trends, and personas. The core principles of netnography, the way I presented it to you, is understanding before measuring, inductive before deductive, reading before counting, detailed before aggregated, and observing before asking. This is what results in in-depth, less biased, fresher, and context-rich insights. During my explanation of the basic steps to run an observational ethnography, I questioned social media monitoring approaches. Yes, I did, and I still will. However, that does not mean that social media monitoring is bad. In fact, we at HYVE also practice social media monitoring, but for purposes different than deep customer understanding. We at HYVE believe that gaining consumer knowledge from social media is a matter of tools. For netnography, the customer, sometimes you need the microscope and sometimes you need the telescope. For netnography, the customer, the user, the consumer is at the center. For monitoring, it's a brand, it's a campaign, it's a timeline, it's about KPIs. Now, given the amount of data being generated today, the development of tremendous technologies out there, it would be childish and primitive not to incorporate some state-of-the-art technology into netnography. Netnographers in the age of big data and social media, seeking knowledge only in a human way is probably an expired netnographer. An up-to-date netnographer seeks this knowledge in a state-of-the-art way by, among other things, including algorithms and intelligent agents, of course. And at the end, both approaches want to approach the value of social listening research. We have similar goals, but with very different outcomes. I do believe that what a social monitoring approach is missing is what two researchers, Wright and Duff, call netnographic sensibility. Netnographic sensibility, which points in the direction of human intelligence, human empathy, and human intuition, is what makes a netnographer a story interpreter, a story builder, which are key skills in consumer insight research and which I miss in every single social media monitoring dashboard. I do believe that netnography can and should complement and complete existing legitimate methods such as social network analysis, big data approaches, smart data, predictive modeling, etc. Honestly, put netnography, this talented child born of ethnography, together with the existing processing power of today's technologies, and you have the richest picture of problems, needs, situations ever. This reasoning opens up possibilities of incorporating computational methods, and in fact, we did. Sorry, we had a technical problem, but it's the last slide. So just let me conclude this very last slide. The reasoning I was just explaining to you opens up possibilities of incorporating computational methods into netnography. And in fact, we already did that. Our experiments show that incorporating computational methods can be especially relevant for the community search, the data search and collection, and some basic data structuring, let's say. For real deep analysis and insight identification, immersion and the human being is still needed, and that won't change very soon. This is the age of big data and social media, yes, but in the face of this, ethnography can help us to avoid digital and numerical opportunism and digital and numerical nonsense. I thank you very much for your time and attention. And well, if you have any questions, please post them. We're happy. I'm happy to give answer to them. Well, to be honest, well, let's read the question out loud. Where does ethnography work? Well, to be honest, it hasn't happened to us that often that ethnography did not work for a certain topic. But it's important always to run a feasibility check. That means before we can really ensure an ethnography project for a given topic, a given client, we first need to just find out, are there online communities there? How is the online dialogue? Do we have enough material to analyze, to extract insights and learnings? So it's always depend on the different topics. But as I said, there is always at least one community for every imaginable topic. But yeah, my recommendation is always doing a feasibility check first to see, okay, can we do that? Can we do that? Another question is, do you consider open dedicated forums within social networks like Facebook and Reddit to be usable for netnography? Yes, yes, definitely. And I can definitely say that I've been doing netnography for 10 years now and or more, and I have experienced really the online dialogue, a great part of it moving to bigger social media networks. So we used to have like this forums always, and a lot of these discussions are merging to this bigger social media networks. So yes, we do really have also great data in Facebook, in Instagram, and yeah, this social media channels and their inner discussions in it. So yeah, it's definitely good. And also in YouTube, you have fabulous discussions on every single video. Yeah, it is possible. How much do you need for a solid analysis in general? Well, as I said, it's not the fastest method ever. It takes at least 2 months. Yes, you have to imagine we're really doing like the very human way. So even if we can collect data software aided, we read and read and read between the lines and again. So it takes us a lot of time. So I would say at least, at the very least, 6 weeks for the eight. It also always depends on how many countries we're analyzing. We have to consider most of the times we analyze countries, some Germany, United States, whatever. Um, that always has an impact. If we do more than two countries, it can take us longer. But I would say the average is between, yes, a normal and normal 6. Yes, in fact, we normally use more than one single online community. And we do this because we're talking about, of course, a market research domain, consumer insights. So in order to really have solid, let's say, solid, credible, clean consumer insights, I don't want to talk about the quantitative part, but in order to have a rich consumer insight, we need different perspectives. So, for example, imagine we're just running an ethnography on veggie burgers, vegetarian burgers, for example. The correct approach would be to analyze vegetarian forums, of course, vegan forums, mainstream forums, and of course, meat lovers forums, yeah, carnivore forums. That really have the different perspectives, and then you can say what is missing with this veggie burger, it's this, and that, and we analyze these different types of consumers. Definitely, we always include different types of communities for the ethnography approach. Yeah, it normally takes 6 to 8 weeks is like the average. It takes 8 weeks because, yeah, as I said before, we have to read a lot, and the task that takes us a lot of time. And of course, it depends the data we're reading as well. Yes, more or less 8 weeks. Can I have the link for the recording later? I'm working on a master thesis within the Northern approach. Yeah, of course. I think Isabel told me that we recorded this presentation, so yes, of course, it's not a problem. We will share the link as soon as it's ready. Okay, we have another question. Did you use ethnography for companies to find new business areas? Yes, you have an example. Yes, yes, we have different cases. To be honest, I had so many cases, so many stories, and actually, I wanted to talk to you about 4 different cases at the end, just for time reasons, I reduced the whole thing to 3 cases. But yes, we do have examples, and I can also share them via email. One example just that comes to my mind was this packet butler. You know, like when Amazon delivers a package and you're not home, yeah, most of the times they just they bring it back, or they just leave it there on the corridor, or they just call your neighbor or whatever. But most of the times you won't find the package. And we developed a butler where it's a box where you can just leave the package. That you can close it, and it was made for the Deutsche Telekom, yeah, which Deutsche Telekom, what is that? Does it have a new delivery service? No, but the Deutsche Telekom entered the machine is Internet of Things domain, and the very first step again was to an ethnography, and that was yeah. Let's give me some insights, give me some ideas on machine-machine communication. What can I do? It was about, I don't know, the pet, taking care of the pet. How is my pet doing when I'm out at work and he's alone at home? It's about the packages, about elderly persons who live alone, and yeah, always, yeah, their kids wondering if she's doing good. Maybe she fell. So yeah, did also we photography, of course, to find new ideas for business. So, okay, I don't see more questions arriving. I thank you all for taking the time and the interest in this ethnography project. I hope you got a good feeling of what ethnography is all about and the differences with other technologies existing today.